So when we do it, it's gonna feel like completely dumb.
Do I gotta stare at you and you gotta stare at me when we do it?
Absolutely not. I won't be able to handle it. I'm not mature enough. I'll laugh.
The lion pose, or simhasana. It helps to relieve tension in both the chest and face. According to traditional texts, simhasana can even destroy disease. But this is about destroying your opponent.
This is something any jiu-jitsu player will organically relate to, is that if you're rolling with somebody and they're doing this, you know that that person's cooked, and that pretty soon thereafter, if you know the technical components, you're gonna be able to take advantage of that fatigue.
This is Deandre Corbe. His martial arts journey began with Muay Thai at the age of 11. By the age of 13, he fell in love with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Add 4 years of grappling in high school, and 10 years since his journey began, Andre is a black belt. He has two main goals in his training, beginning with always progressing his art.
I've been working a lot of conceptually now, understanding the concepts of why these techniques were made, or why these techniques are used, and the principles behind certain methods of doing jiu-jitsu. Besides that overarching goal, I really want to become a world champion. This small gym in Virginia Beach produces some savage dudes and some guys that could be a force on the mat, and I want to show that to the world.
During the 2019 season, Deandre's skills were on full display. From February to June, he racked up gold medals working through tournaments on his way to the World Championships. A first-round elimination ended his season at Worlds and left him with one glaring question.
What do I need to do? What do I need to change about my training so I could get to that next level? And that's where I started talking to Rob about training, helping me out, helping me train for the next season.
This is Rob Wilson, strength and conditioning coach, co-founder of Art of Breath, and a student at Coastal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
When I came up to Rob right before class, he was stretching out, and I came up to him and said, "Hey man, are you taking any students?" Those are my exact words. Are you taking any students?
And I remember what I said. I was like, is it anybody or is it you?
I said, yes, it's me.
Like, okay, if it's you, then yes, but not just anybody.
He wanted to really understand what I was doing, what my training is like.
We started analyzing, what happened last year that he liked, didn't like. How did he think I could help, if at all? And we just started breaking all that stuff down and kind of analyzing where to take his training for the next season.
When I was in those early months of leading up to Worlds, I was feeling great. And again, I'm in my head, I'm like, all right, I just gotta push a little harder, push a little stronger, put some more weight on the bar, do a little bit more rounds. And then eventually, man, when I got to the Worlds, man, it just didn't, I think all that kind of like culminated into something that wasn't where I wanted to be. I haven't felt fresh in a long time, to the point where I forgot how it feels to be 100%.
If you haven't felt fresh all year, that means you're burning the nervous system candle from both ends. And it's really hard to come with your best mental game. And that's the thing about the cognitive component of jiu-jitsu. I mean, I like to refer to it as death chess. A lot of the game is being 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps ahead of your opponent. At some point, everybody's in amazing physical condition, and it's about, do I have enough mental energy to keep my game moving at the appropriate tempo in order to win? The difference is your bicep doesn't have the same kind of feedback loop with your deep nervous system that your diaphragm has. So when you develop more broad control over the ability to use your diaphragm, then you get really good at manipulating your nervous system just by default. Breathing is like the connection between my ability to maintain metabolic output and my ability to function at a high level cognitively, right? Because if my sympathetic drive, right, that fight or flight system goes off the rails, it makes it really hard for me to make sound decisions and do my best thinking. And your diaphragm is actually the muscle that draws energy in the form of air and oxygen into your body. And people, mostly when they try to improve their conditioning, just work harder and they work more. And eventually that just beats you up, right? So our approach is, how can we maximize the efficiency of training?
In my head, when I first started, I know how to breathe. I don't get tired on the mat. Then I started doing like the different protocols and different methods of learning how to breathe, using my nose, using my diaphragm. And I was like, man, this is really tough.
You know, a lot of times people put a lot of mystical, like, ooh, around the Kabbalabhati. But if you think about it like an exercising muscle, then it's just, you're giving it a specific stimulus where I'm using a cycle of contraction and relaxation that helps me develop more of a sense of control over that muscle, so that when I try to use it when I do other things, especially when I'm under stress, then it's easier to do. And that's sort of like developing the skill of breathing itself, right? So when you're not on the mat or you're not training in the gym, you're sitting somewhere and it's quieter, doing things like, you know, the Kabbalabhati breathing, where we're breathing fast, or, you know, I have them in a headstand or something like that. That's really about what are the basic parameters of breath control, and then how do I start to layer in variables that make it harder for me to execute fundamentals. And the reason that we do that is so that when you then apply it to sport, and there's now more and more variables that I have to deal with to execute the actual movements and rules and try to win in the sport, I've practiced those other parts separately enough times that it becomes automatic. There you go. Good. Get it, get it, get it. 2. Good. And downshift, get your RPMs. Nice. Good, really push air out. If you gotta use fourth, there you go. And remember all that facial work that we did? Opening your nostrils up bigger. Use those valves that you have available. You know, if I just have him stand on a ski erg and just work really hard, that's not enough. Like, he's been in combat sports his whole life. He already knows how to do that. What we need to know is how many variables can he deal with while he's tired. There you go. Nice work. That's it.
Just doing the breath work, I feel like I'm more in control. When I spar, I'm not gonna be thinking about do these certain breath patterns, but through that breath work, it becomes almost like a habit. We're learning to use the right mechanics, and I think that's where the benefit is. Like, not saying that I would go into a match and say, I'm going to take 10 breaths during this time. From my practice, my formal breath practice, it should help me because it's become a habit, and I start using those habits to help me progress or help me train or help me compete.
It's like when you sharpen a knife. There's a right amount of sharpening where the knife is just as sharp as it should be. You keep doing it too much, eventually the blade gets brittle and it cracks. If you don't do it enough, the blade chips. It doesn't cut as well. So there's a just amount right of sharpening and honing and polishing And that's how you have to think about developing a human being, is that there's a right amount of hardness that has to go into shaping the blade of a person, and then at some point you're just honing and polishing, and you don't need to hammer the metal anymore.
It was like starting jiu-jitsu all over again for me, man. I just feel better on the mat. With Rob helping me, it's allowing me to work smarter, right? Be smarter about my training so I can put that hard work on the mat. Not necessarily physically, but like trying to progress my jiu-jitsu.
Even if you become the best in the world, you're the champion, and let's say that you repeat that and it's amazing, at some point, things fall apart, right? And the body can sustain only so much. If you really have an understanding of purposefully organizing stress in your life, and you're using sport and training as a lens to understand those things, that's a sustainable lesson that you can keep refining all the way throughout your entire life. And so, you know, if there's something I'd ultimately want him to get from us training together, it would be that. Now, that said, I want to do everything that I possibly can to support the immediate goal of going to Worlds next year and winning.
Hey, if you won't give it to me, I'ma take it.